Is this thing on? All right. If anybody else is out in the gathering place that wants to come in, we'll kind of give them my contact, and then we'll go ahead and get started. So, well, welcome. First, I want you to do something with me. Take a deep breath in, and then take a deep breath out. That's what I want you to feel like when you walk into the sanctuary, right? When I put on, and this may be something different for you, but when I put on a really comfortable pair of shoes, all of the muscles in my body relax. And I want the sanctuary to kind of feel like that for y'all the way it does for me. We don't want this room to just be our sanctuary, the sanctuary, a building. We want it to be a sanctuary, the place where you come and connect with God. So that's what we're talking about today, is how can we improve upon that and make it ready for our next generation of congregants, of visitors. So first, I want to thank you for taking the time, because I know that you all have busy Sundays to get to. Personally, I'm going straight from here to watch the college baseball tournament. So hopefully you have big plans for your Sabbath. I only have about 12 slides and one video for you today, so this is not going to take a whole lot of your time, but I'm also not going to rush through it. And we're going to allow time at the end to answer any questions you have, but you don't have to stay through all of those questions. So just stay as long as you like, and thank you for your time, and you can get on with your day. All right, first I probably should introduce myself. I'm Will Wingfield, and I am co-chair of the Trustees for 2026. I'm going to introduce some other folks that are on our team a little bit later. Our sanctuary is one of our most historic and most sacred spaces. Everyone has a different reason why this sanctuary is meaningful and sacred to them. For me, this one is almost identical to First United Methodist Church in Athens, Georgia. It's where my parents got married and where my grandfather attended for 50 years. I remember sitting in the balcony with him and all the other kids when he would hand out lifesavers to keep them engaged during worship service. So that's my why, that it connects me to the rituals, the tradition that I grew up with my family. I haven't shared this before, with my family and my faith. And everybody here has their own reason why that this sanctuary is so important to them. But I also really enjoy the contemporary service, and I know some of you here have walked over from that. It's great that we have both of those here at our church. The agenda isn't really big. It's just a brief recap of what Rod did so well of sharing with the capital campaign update, just to reinforce some of those things. Spend a hot moment on HVAC projects. Tim's going to talk to us about how we best welcome our visitors at Carmel United Methodist Church. Going to talk a little bit about some of the work that we have already done here in the sanctuary this year. And then we'll start introducing folks, talk about the universe of potential projects that we're thinking about for this space, and then get into the two that we think would be best for the first projects. And then, of course, allow time for any questions that you have. So as Rod mentioned, we are at about 57% contributions would be the top line. The 100 would be the pledges that we received, and we've even been fortunate to have pledges that were not, or we've been fortunate to have gifts that were not pledges. So that's helped to increase our number significantly. As a trustee, I cannot say thank you enough for your generosity and the generosity of the people that are not here today. It has given us the confidence to work with our vendors for these high-dollar projects and know that when we get to the end of the planning process, the funds will be there to actually do the project. And when we start talking about HVAC, start talking about this sanctuary, the dollar figures get really big really fast. We're already starting to see how the building is no longer putting pressure on our operating budget, and that's freeing up funds, and funds are freeing up ideas for innovative ministries and missions for our endowment, things like that. So we're already seeing positive momentum with that. Just outside our sanctuary, this is a different photo than the one that Rod used in worship today, but it's really right there. The reason we're having this meeting here is so I can point, and why I've got the head mic on so I don't have to be juggling things while I point. It's right there. So that's, and we're updating it, because if I don't, then Rod will be on my case to make sure that I do. So that's where you can get an update. But when I go and introduce the folks that are working today, you can also talk to them. I'm here for all of the worship services when I'm in town, because I sing with acclaim, so feel free to come find me before, after, just not during. And then over in Contemporary, Jeff Silvas is my co-chair, and he can be found there as well. And we've got Al Moss, another trustee, with us right now. In addition to the board, we've got the newsletter, we've got the Midweek Connect, we've got the updates that are provided during worship, social media posts if we need to. There's a bunch of ways that you can stay updated, but the grand central station for all of that information is our Capital Campaign webpage, CarmelUMC/Capital Campaign. It's so easy to remember. So we're recording this meeting today. For those that couldn't make it, we are in summer and kids are out of school, so that you can either go back and reference what we're talking about, or refer people who have questions for you to that webpage. So that's a great place to find information. All right, on to HVAC. It's going to be the largest category of expenses in our capital campaign by far, and that's what we envisioned when we started this exercise. I wanted to show you some photos about what Rod was talking about earlier today. The thing on the left is not actually a barbecue smoker, even though it looks like one. It's our temporary heating solution that we have for the Family Life Center, because the heat went out the first week of Advent, and perfect timing. I would say that's God's timing, but I don't know how. So obviously we couldn't get it replaced in time for the following Sunday, and we brought this in as a temporary solution. We're working to get that fully fixed before the heating season begins next fall. Not with just not with a fixed heating system, a whole new system. Air conditioning, heat, drop it into a spot where we can turn it on while the old one is still working, so they don't conflict. We don't have to take the building down in the warmest months of the year. The other thing that was mentioned, the air conditioning. This is a photo from behind that pretty concrete pavilion that's between this door, door 3, and our ADA door, door 4. I see you, Ms. Paramore, you're here. That's what's not working. We're working on getting that at least partially fixed, so that the admin offices in particular are no longer having an open window and a fan blowing cold air from the morning into those offices every weekday that they're in the office. So we're starting to look at what system, we've been looking with our engineer at what systems to put in. And on this side of the building, where we have offices in the conference room, and on that side of the building, where we have 121, 122, the chapel, some preschool rooms, we're thinking about putting in an advanced air conditioning system and heat pump that essentially can only be activated in the rooms when they're used, because the offices are used during the week, not so much on Sundays. The adult discipleship rooms are used at night, preschool during the day. There's a lot of very intermittent activity in those rooms, so it allows us to turn it on where we need it. If one office is too hot, like Justin's office, we can cool it, and if another one's too cold, we can actually move temperature, because that's the way heat pumps and air conditioning operate. They move heating and cooling from one place to another to make the whole building comfortable when it's needed. Just the right amount of heat, just the right amount of cooling at just the right time. That's what we're optimistic about. So that's the latest, just from a trustee, a little bit more color and context All right, let's move on to the sanctuary. Enough about HVAC. The slide behind me is Easter Sunday worship when our sanctuary is packed, and that's going to set the tone for Pastor Tim to sort of frame the discussion for us today and what we're talking about. Tim?
Yeah, you know, the thing that apparently bothered Jesus the most in his earthly ministry was when he came into the temple, and the only spot in the temple that was open to everybody, even visitors and guests. If you weren't a circumcised Jew, you could come in the courtyard of the Gentiles. And it was being used for other purposes that made worship virtually impossible. That's where he overturned the tables. That's where he made the court of ropes. That's where he ran out the money changers, which I had to be explained to me early in my ministry. Not the people who count the money. They're great. We love the people who count our collection. These are the people that were saying, if you want to buy an offering here, you've got to use our money, and oh, by the way, the exchange rate is never in your favor. So, point being, our sanctuary serves a number of different purposes, but maybe one of the best purposes it serves is a place for us to bring our neighbors, our family, our friends, where they can join us in hearing about the good news of Jesus Christ and have their lives touched and changed as a result of that. And so I've been in part of congregations that worried a lot about relatively insignificant things, colors of the carpet or various kinds of things. The key question is, are we updating, maintaining, improving our worship space so that it can continue to speak to the next generation or to the men and women who make up our community? And by the way, if you've noticed with all the building around our church, we're within walking distance of a great number of people now. And we want to make sure our sanctuary is attractive, that we're able to communicate audibly, visually, have the right lighting, and be able to do things like what we do on Christmas Eve. Right now on Christmas Eve, the pastor has to try to remember which lights to turn off at which scripture is read. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But you say, what is it about this sanctuary that touches you the most? I tell you, one of the high moments for me is on Christmas Eve when people are up holding those lights up, and I look out at you, and this congregation is just a sea of lights, and we're singing about the joy that God has brought into our world through the birth of his son, Jesus. And that is just what makes this place special, is you and the people you bring with you to experience what you experience here. So my hope is that as we talk about the sanctuary, we talk about it in terms of the ones we want to share it with. It should be less about our preference and more about the purpose for which God has called this church. Does that make sense? If it doesn't, it's Will's fault. He told me to say that.
Well, and it was Tim's way of framing the thing. I just so greatly respect Tim's leadership, but more specifically his experience in the years and years and years he's led churches and been through all of this before. It's just, oh, we're back to this again. Let me turn the page in my history book back to when I did this 2 or 3 times before. Speaking of before, I just want to talk about some things that we've already been doing in this sanctuary because I want to make sure people notice. Al is sitting here. There's some other folks. Wayne is here, who helped us refinish the end caps on these pews. I wish you could have noticed them a bit more before we did it. They were high gloss stain, and the stain was starting to wear from all the weddings and all the people, using them as hand braces to get in and out. Mark Bourget, who serves with me in the chancel choir, led the effort to get these refinished, to get the stain to match, to get the right type of polyurethane on them. And we thought, this is just going to be a 1-week project. It was a 1-week project, but that meant working 5 hours a day, 5 days a week to get it done, allowing proper time for all the curing. It looks fantastic now. You can actually see the grain of the original oak from what it is. But then that created a lot of dust. But we had a plan for that. We brought in Stanley Steamer right before Holy Week to not just clean, and it was actually the leadership of our building manager, Aaron, who's here today, to clean the sanctuary and the gathering place and the preschool hallways and some of the other high traffic areas, wash the windows, do some things that get the dust and the food crumbs out of our pew cushions, so that we could have a really nice face for worship on Holy Week. So that's an example of some of the small projects we do, but we're here to kind of talk about some of those big projects that we've got planned. So, but first I want to introduce the team that's helping us all put this together. As was mentioned during worship, we've got volunteer trustees. Al, do you mind standing up for a second? Can I put you on the spot? I'm really happy to serve with Al. That was about the shortest stand-up possible. But I'm really blessed to serve with some trustees who bring a variety of different experiences to the table. Al seems to know everyone in this church and is also great with insurance. He helped us save about $25,000, if I remember correctly, on our insurance when we renewed it this year. Jeff Silvis is not here, but he's my co-chair. He is a retired engineer, so he knows how to talk turkey with other engineers that need to help us with things. Tim Eckert works in commercial construction, so he knows every vendor that will get us a good price and will give us quality work. And then from my end, I'm just the guy who worked to communicate construction with the state DOT for a dozen or so years working in state government. The smiling faces that you see behind me are our in-house experts that we're relying on to make the recommendations on what to do for this sanctuary. So you see from the top left, Chris Lieber, who is here, but he's where he normally sits up in the sanctuary helping to operate the sound and the lights somewhat for the meeting today.
Good morning, everyone.
Also the voice of God when needed.
It's the Lord.
And then to their right are Dave and Ray, our faithful, longtime worship leaders on the traditional music side. They make us sound good. They help us to fully praise God. It's been great serving with them on chancel choir and then graduating to acclaim, which is very stressful for me. On the next row, we have Aaron Adams, our building manager, who's right here, if he will wave his hand. He and Justin DeHart, who's immediately to his right, have been here since early this morning, helping to keep all of the people cheering on Carmel Marathon and 5K and 10K runners out of our parking lot, so we had parking for worship today because, why not reschedule the Carmel Marathon onto a Sunday, right? So they are our staff between building manager and administrator. Every time I walk through these doors, they are always seemingly here, and I'm always telling them, hey, it's 5 o'clock on a Friday, maybe you should go home. And then to the right, we've got Veronica Cooper, who not only runs our slides, but leads our handbell choir like she did today. She's sitting up in the balcony too. But most importantly, she's also mom to Anna, who is the cutest member of our children's moment at the 9 a.m. worship service when you're here. So these are our in-house subject matter experts. When we run out of our expertise and we need to bring in somebody paid, they also help connect us with the engineers, the specialists that we need to be able to do this work right. So they have a network of vendors and acoustic specialists and sound specialists and things like that. So now moving into the project list. This is sort of the universe of potential projects, and I was going to go into the bullet points just a little bit. So I referenced earlier that HVAC is going to kind of be the budget buster for, and Aaron's doing something that for a show and tell later. So once we kind of have an idea of how much the HVAC is going to cost, That will allow us to fully understand how many of these items we're going to be able to tick off this list. So I want to make it clear that not every item on this list is a promise. This is a wish list. This is what we would love to do. It's just a question of, HVAC is a very expensive light item. Let's get that done first, make sure our building comfortable, and then we're going to start working on this full list of projects. So the first one on the list is the color and white directional stage lighting for worship that Tim currently has to control, as you saw from the pulpit. We want to move those controls at least primarily back to Chris, maybe leave some degree of control up front, but that will be determined. New screens and slides for video. We'll talk about that a little bit more, but basically where you're seeing this list here on either side of the cross. Let's see, studying the acoustics of this space. Depending upon where you sit, it's a very different audio experience for worship. We have different textures and different materials in this space between the windows and the shutters and the walls. We want to study that and see if there's any way that we can improve upon that so that regardless of where you sit, you get a crisp, clear vocals and lyrics and Tim's sermon, and you can hear the music without reverb. Improving the in-ear audio, not just for Dave and Ray when they're trying to make our music sync up, but then also for people who have hearing problems. Our T-coil is actually, that's in place now, is kind of an older technology. There's a bit of stigma having to go back to the ushers and request the headset, and it may not work, and it may not have batteries, and on and on and on. The newest technology uses Bluetooth. So if you can use your phone with your hearing aid, you'd be able to come here and hear worship crisp and clear with your hearing aid as well. We're actually pursuing a grant through the Methodist Church to try to do that. The audio-visual improvements would not just benefit those sitting here in person, but also those watching on our live stream. A lot of people shop churches by watching the live stream first. That's why it's so important. So we want to make sure that that sounds the best way, that it looks and sounds the best way that it could. We've had some observation from the congregation that and based upon where you're sitting, it's going to be that way for a lot of you, that the eternal flame that we have in this corner can block visibility of that screen. So there's been some discussion about potentially moving that to avoid that in some way or another. We haven't made any decision about that. And then, let's see. When we did the deep clean, we learned that this is actually wool carpet here. And the folks at Stanley Steamer said, don't you ever dare remove that carpet. Just keep cleaning it, and as you clean it, it will look better and better and better over time. So we're not going to touch the carpet, but we have removed pews over time, and there's places where the older tile is exposed. So we're talking about maybe we can carpet that over in a way to make it look nicer. Is there something that we can do with the tile itself without disturbing the carpet? These are kind of considerations that we're looking at. And then finally, the paint, the trim. Some of you may have noticed that from leaks that we have since repaired with the roof, that there's a little bit of staining in the ceiling. We'd like to, do a little fresh coat of paint, but once you paint one thing in a room, everything else looks a little drab. It becomes a bit of a slippery slope. So we may have to do more than just the ceiling. Let's see. I want to make sure I covered the whole list. I think so. All right, moving on. All right, so before we talk about the lights, I wanted to replay the video in case you missed that one worship service from our November capital campaign update. It'll also help you kind of understand how the lights work. So we were going to replay this 2-minute video.
My name is Jeff Weber. During contemporary service, I'm either running sound or camera, or next Sunday I'll be running the lights. The lighting system was put in at least 10 years ago, and because of its age, equipment was beginning to fail. We had 4 fixtures that had already failed. The computer had messed up a couple of times to the point where we had to shut the lights off during service. The first thought is panic. We're 90 minutes out from the service beginning. We don't have lights. We have to have lights. And when we determined that it was the computer, where everything began, there was nothing we could do about it. Even with the house lights up, it was still dim on stage, and it was especially bad for the camera, for the folks at home. So we had to upgrade to get at least a functioning system, and while we were at it, we thought we'd get a better system. Adding the extra lights means we have more versatility. We can do more things, throw a light in a different direction. For instance, for the Advent table, we didn't have a spotlight that we could throw in that direction. Now we do. Instead of setting lights for the entire service, now we are able to alter or change the lighting from one part of the service to the next merely by pushing one fader. So it's simpler to operate. It also enables us to add flexibility. We can do things now that we could not have done with the old system. The problem with the old system was it was designed 10 years ago and couldn't be modified. I think this system is going to work a long time. The controllers in both here in Contemporary and in the Sanctuary will be identical. They will function the same way. So anyone who runs lights in here should take about 5 minutes to learn how to run lights in the Sanctuary. The most pleasant part of this job are the people I work with, and the people I talk to in the congregation. I've been doing this sort of work for half a century, and this is one of the most pleasant jobs I've ever had.
Somebody had goldfish in their pew with them today. And if you ever stepped on goldfish, it becomes impossible to clean up after that point. So the photos that are in this next slide are really for the benefit of people who are not in this building, because I'm just going to point. So you saw what those lights look like, and what we have envisioned for this space would operate the same way, but look different. So you'll notice that we have they've got covers on them in some places, but we have directional lighting set in holes in the ceiling. So what we want to do with the new stage or directional lighting is basically try to recess it as much as possible. Try to see if we can get some white housing to match the white ceiling. And if it does require some sort of mounting, to make it as low profile as possible. We've still got a couple of quotes. We haven't made the final decisions on things. That's why we're here to have this meeting today before we do. But the idea is that the new lighting would operate similarly, but would look differently than what we currently have in the Family Life Center. Let's see if there was anything else I wanted to mention on that. Oh, that's right. Some of the spotlights are actually here on the side as well. So we envision that this existing enclosure would need to be rebuilt as well, just in terms of what you're looking at. But the idea would be to kind of hide it behind a type of enclosure. So again, we're getting that capability of a new lighting system, but having it still, we're only working at the periphery here, that we're trying to make it fit the context of a traditional worship space as much as possible. So I'm going to transition to the video wall slides first, but before I do that, I want to do a little bit of a show and tell. Aaron, if you can hear my voice, would you please emerge from the place where you're hiding? And if you could actually walk out into frame so that they get some context about how a little bit of an Alfred Hitchcock effect going on. I'm aging myself. So now we can go to the next slide and kind of show things a bit more. So there's actually a ton of space behind these screens. I didn't know how this worked until I crawled up there myself. And don't any of you dare tell the youth about this, all right? That's why they're all down at their luncheon right now, so they can't hear any of this. There's a bunch of space that was once occupied by our pipe organ. And when we switched to the other organ, which when we had our guest organist in for a First Wednesday, he was saying we made the right choice 20 years ago. It was the right model to purchase. It's still working great. But we have all this space up here that we can then use for anything that we need in terms of the video wall. So what we're looking at is, the best way I could describe it is an LED video wall. And it is intended to be used the same way we use it today. But if you sit in the sanctuary where a lot of our people, our congregants, sit in the sanctuary, it's towards the back where it's gotten dim over time. The light bulbs eventually go dim before they burn out, and we want to deal with this before they do, and we have to replace something. So that's the challenge of what we're trying to solve. And again, the LED video wall is the solution that we're looking at. Anytime you walk in, once you know what to look for, anytime you walk into a new construction anywhere, you start seeing these because the price on them has dropped dramatically. I see it at Westfield Collective, which is the new food hall that they've built near Grand Park. I saw it at the new arena in the Noblesville that they built for the minor league basketball team. But they're also using it in churches, and there's actually companies that have sprung up dedicated to putting these in church environments. And the closest example that we have locally, it's actually walking distance from here, is the outdoor screen at Midtown. So if you want to look at one in action. Now this is an outdoor solution. It's a little different than what we would put indoors. But there's a couple important things that I want to, and I guess the best part of it is it's brighter. It's so bright that we may have to turn the brightness down. But that's good because they get dimmer over time, so then we can crank it back up. It's supposed to have an estimated service life of 50 to 100,000 hours. So divide that by 2 hours of worship a week. Do I think it's going to last tens of thousands of years? I'm not setting that expectation, but I'm also optimistic that it's going to last for many, 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 many years to come, longer than the projectors that we've been using. But there's a couple things I want to make very clear. One, we're still planning to have 2 screens. 2, we're still planning to have the cross sitting front and center. We want to try to basically recreate what we have today with a projector and a semi-transparent screen with an LED, and then have it sort of fit flush within the trim and the drywall and everything else that we've got. So there's going to be some work to do that. It'll be a whole process. The only thing I've asked for is, can we have one of the new ones and one of the old ones at the same time so you can really see the difference between the two? We'll see if we can make that happen. But again, we want to match the aesthetics of this sanctuary. It's a traditional worship space, and it's important that we maintain that aesthetic. So we've kind of reached the end of the presentation part. Hopefully that hasn't been too painful. I'm looking forward to stopping talking and maybe answering your questions here. The stage lighting and the LED video wall are really the only 2 things we're looking at moving forward with in the short term. When we come back and want to do more things for this sanctuary, we'll probably hold another meeting like this just to kind of bring you up to speed, because it was important for me that we didn't touch anything in here other than, maybe refinishing pew end caps until we really gave the opportunity for the congregation to hear about this. So this presentation is being recorded today, so it can go up on our Capital Campaign webpage. I'll probably put the slides up too, so that other people that couldn't attend can see what's going on. We really want to make sure that people, so as you talk with the other members of this congregation who weren't here, make sure you please fill them in and let them know what's going on, and be excited about it. Let them know that, hey, we're trying to make this as welcoming of a sanctuary as possible for our neighbors, for our family, and for our visitors. Just a brief note of housekeeping. I'm here as long as you need me, but if you need to duck out, you're welcome to quietly do so. If there's a specific conversation you want to take offline, I can do that as well. And any of the people that you saw on that slide, you can talk with, and we'll make sure we get it to the right person in terms of getting your questions answered. If you've got any concerns, let's talk about them now. Let's not wait until after we've signed contracts and paid money and have to then make change orders, and then it gets really expensive. So with that said, I am happy to answer any questions you have and refer any that I don't to people that do.
All right, I have two questions.
Well, somebody raised their hand, so yes, sir.
Bill, two questions. Are the improvements for the sanctuary covered under the improvements for the complete operation versus sanctuary? Are these extra charges?
So I think your question is this something different than what we've planned for? So this is part of our capital campaign.
Okay, it's part of it. Okay. My second question.
Yes.
Are you open to suggestions to improve the sanctuary or the
Are we open to suggestions? Yes. In fact,
one suggestion?
would you go to that list? It's the next slide, Veronica, please. Okay, go ahead.
I have one suggestion. I'd like to see stained glass windows.
Okay. Oh, wow. Ooh. I don't even know how much those things cost. Okay, so the suggestion, just repeating for everybody to hear, is stained glass windows. Those are beautiful. I have seen them. I'm curious to how much they cost in terms of budget buster, but okay. Well, and you know, so I was gonna say, we could always ask. You know, that's the benefit of being able to do that. So. Oh, I think we could at least get an idea of, you know, at a planning level what the costs are. So. Well, that's true. That's true. All right. You had a question. I wanted to come back to you.
Yeah, I've only really sat in the front. And so my question was, I don't know, is it hard to see those screens from the back? Not the best eyesight in the world. Are you thinking of larger LED screens than there right now? Like, are you going to maybe break that up and rebuild that?
Okay. The question was, is it hard to see the screens? And
You're all the way in the back.
and if you're in the back, and you know, would it be different than kind of the sizing that's there today? So when these were first put in, we might have still had some worship content, you know, maybe before these projectors, but the one before that was still the 4:3 aspect ratio. So that would be like the older tube TVs that had more of a square screen. Everything today is widescreen, sort of movie dimension, 16:9. So that's what we would match the content that we're putting up on the screen in terms of the slides and the videos and things like that. So you know, it already is a little bit widescreen, but we would maximize the space that we have available, but we don't want to start eating into you know, too much of the cross or too much of the trim on either side. So really, I would say it's going to be roughly the same size, just making sure that it's you know, capable for that 16:9 widescreen that everything is nowadays. Does that answer your question?
Sure.
Okay. I saw some others back here.
Where is the eternal frame? Where will you move?
Where we'll move the eternal frame?
Where is it?
We're going to have to put a committee together because we're good Methodists and figure that out. We don't have a decision made.
But it would be visible.
But of course it would be visible. We have not made that decision yet because we don't know who has an opinion on that yet. So it's just something that by starting the conversation on that, we'll make sure that everybody's aware, so that we make sure that we end up in the right spot in terms of at the end of the process. Oh, so sorry. I've been trying to do that and I forgot. The question was where would the eternal flame go? What height would it be? And that decision has not been made yet. Did you have a question?
Yeah, just out of curiosity, since you're talking about updating worship lights and such like that.
Mm-hmm.
Are you going to look at lighting for the rest of this room at a later point?
So the question was not just the directional stage lighting, but lighting for the rest of the room. So we recently updated the whole church with LED lighting. So my understanding is, and it was a little bit before my time, so I'm going to look at Chris in the whites of the eyes to make sure I answer this correctly. But the perimeter lighting that you see here, that's sort of the bright white, that was replaced as part of that within the past few years. So that's the primary lighting in this room that's not stage lighting. Really, when we talk about the directional stage lighting, it's It's the front of house, as they call it in the theater world. Did I answer that correctly?
Yes, that's correct.
All right, good.
The plan basically is the position of all of the lights would remain, but instead of them only being on light, they would be able to change color, dim. Tim would go home with me, he doesn't really play. As you notice right now, the choir lights are off as they go through. In order to make the projectors more visible, with the LED, you can have direct sunlight and it's still viewable. In terms of the size, if you notice the current picture has a gray border around it. One of the companies that we're bidding says they can fill the entire space. So it'll be a little bit bigger. The main point will be brighter and it will be much more crisp.
So I have more of a comment than a question. If we improve the audio and the lighting and the video, it doesn't necessarily mean better sermons. Or shorter sermons, for that matter.
And
Let's be clear on the promises we're making here.
maybe we need to add auto tune so that I can get some of those notes better when I'm singing with acclaim.
That sounds great.
Ron.
Question about how will it ever be where we'll have to worship in another space?
Ooh, great question. So I'm gonna
While what's going on?
rephrase it to make sure I understand. The question was, when we're doing this construction, what impact is it going to have on worship? Before we get into that plan, we wanted to make sure that we socialized what we were planning to do. So the next step, we've got two quotes from vendors already for the things that we've talked about, is to get with them, find out what their time frames are, availability of materials, things like that. We wanted to make sure there weren't any deal breakers here first. Our goal is to minimize the impact of worship. The space that I showed back there for our LED video walls gives us a lot of room to work with, because not only is there room behind the screens, but there's actually room on the sides where the organ is. So any carpentry work that we might have to do to create a structure for the LED wall, a lot of times they're just mounted up on the wall. We don't have to do that. We can then service it from behind. It makes life really easy. So we're going to try to minimize the impact as much as possible. Now, if we're up on the ceiling putting in new lights, we're going to need scissor lifts. Hopefully not scaffolding, but scissor lifts to really get up high. So we're going to try to do as much of that between noon on Sunday and 9 a.m. on a following Sunday. That's where we have the ability to communicate by email, the newsletter, social media, if there's going to be an impact to worship, but we're really trying to minimize that as much as possible. We have two.
One thing you have not mentioned, that as an artist and art educator,
Yeah.
you haven't said anything about the color. This space, your carpet's going to stay in this. You really need to consult with someone who does color for interiors, because this is your space.
Right.
And you want to have a certain feeling in that space.
Right.
And the color that you put on the ceiling and the walls and the trim have a great deal to do with that environment. And I haven't heard you talk about that. It isn't expensive, but you're going to paint it and do it
Oh,
anyway.
yeah.
But you need to consult with someone who can tell you about spaces and what colors you need. And there are people out there that will do it for you.
Right, so just to repeat on the microphone, the comment was that make sure that we consider the color on the overall impact of the.
Yeah, don't just say, oh, I like blue, I think we should have blue with the carpet, and make it talk, because psychologically, color has a big effect on people when
Well,
they're in a space.
The whole point of having meetings like this is so that decisions like that are not made in a closed room with no one else involved. We have not even talked about the color at this point, so that's why I haven't talked about it, but.
I mean, it's an art thing.
Right.
Stained glass windows are expensive, and the church I grew up in, my mother wanted stained glass windows, and we donated one, all of that, but they are expensive. the family might want to do a window.
Oh, okay.
And to start, make it another project.
Yeah, yeah,
You could do that, you could also put glass in, or do something so they're not clear,
right.
but more opaque, because the building looked like you see out there is not that.
Yeah,
Anyway.
and the benefit
there's
is,
things that way, I just think about that kind of thing,
yeah.
not just with hardware construction.
So the other comment was just, you know, around stained glass windows and just the expense and the construction of them and potential ways to fund them. So, yeah,
So I think the windows are a wonderful idea.
yeah,
That's another way to go at it.
right. All right. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
I was glad to see audio clarity up there.
Mhm.
I hope that's under serious consideration. I question whether the T-coil is working because I sit here with my phone and flip back and forth trying to find one or the other that works well for
Right.
me, and I miss a lot.
So the comment was about the audio clarity and the T-coil not working. I've heard the same thing from others, and so my advice has been with the T-coil that you basically just have to get the headset to get it to work. That I've had other people tell me they can't get it to work, and that's the idea. Apparently, the new Bluetooth system that we want to get grant funded is not super expensive, so that's good. But it again is primarily a Bluetooth function that works with the newer hearing aids. So we would just have to make sure that works. Any other questions? I'm looking behind. I feel like the questions are starting to peter out, but
Well, why don't we close with a prayer, and then people who have questions can stick around. How's
that's
that?
perfect. Thank you, Pastor Tim.
Brothers and sisters, let's be in prayer. In this holy place, Lord, that has been sanctified so many times, where we have baptized your children and adults, where we have brought together husbands and wives, where we have prayed and grieved over the loss of your saints and celebrated their return to you. This is a place, Lord, that means so much to us that we want to make sure we get it right. But most of all, even beyond extending the hospitality of this space to our neighbors, we want to do what is pleasing to you. And may that be so, and as you continue to use your leaders here in this church, we ask this in Jesus' name. Amen.